I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, February 20th, 2018 to order. Charlie, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Public forum. I'm going to make an exception. I intend, under new business, old business, to give an update on where we are with the ordinance to amend the Town of Guilford for hydraulic fracturing waste restrictions. So I would entertain anything in public forum for anyone who wants to address that item, even though it is not on the agenda. You okay?
Fine.
You're all right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're good.
What would be the date that the hearing?
We need to establish that today, so we'll get that out shortly. Open meeting. All right. Anyone else in public forum? Hearing none. Item 3, approved minutes. The first of which are January 19th, 2018. Comments, questions, changes, additions, and deletions.
Move the exceptions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yep. Anything?
I have no changes.
I have no changes either. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? No. February 1st, the special workshop meeting. Is there a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Second. Any comments, questions, changes? No. I have none either. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? February 5th, regular meeting. At February 5th. That's that was the
hearing on the trails.
The hearing on the trails. That's right. Is there a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Comments, questions, etc.
Looks good.
No, pretty detailed. Just I think that was a pretty eventful evening. We got plenty of input related to the sidewalk discussions, and then our regular.
You missed the first February 1st.
No, I think we did that.
We
did.
missed
Yeah.
February
Yeah,
5th
it's okay.
wasn't the trails, because I missed February 5th, and I actually was here for the trails.
All right. Then-
Sidewalks.
Oh, the sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was thinking
No,
of the
you're
disc.
right.
Okay, never mind.
And actually,
It was
one thing that's raised with the in these minutes too, the Eversource folks have started. I don't know if you've been up on Stepstone, but
Yeah.
those trucks are moving in, and the pads that they described are. I mean, they are moving forward with purpose.
I haven't seen you. Been up there? Take a ride.
It's pretty impressive.
I see it every day.
And we received word, I think yesterday, from Eversource that they were going to, late notice, but they were going to start with the planes today. And I think we posted that up on the town website, so we got notification of that yesterday afternoon from our Eversource community liaison. So. All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 1. Recusals? Okay, February 6th, 2018 special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any comments, questions, sir?
I can't.
I'll second it.
You
Yeah.
second it.
Yes. Anything further?
Nope.
No questions? Thank you. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Got one abstention.
1 abstention and no recusals. Thank you. All right, item 4. Finance Director's report. 4.1 would be receive the monthly report from the Finance Director. I think some of us heard this the other night.
So we're done.
It's Groundhog Day? Oh, no, we already had that, right? All right.
Okay, so, ready?
Ready.
So we are reporting as of the end of January, and it's 58.3% through the year. Looking at the expenditures, we are 67% expended as of the end of January as compared to 66.5% last year. So we are right on target. The only item that I wanted to bring your attention to this afternoon is you will note that the revaluation line is overdrawn. That is because we have a reserve fund in place that we put money in every year, and whatever overage will be at the end of the year will be covered by that reserve fund. But you will see that over until the end of the year.
So we can sit with that over expended, we don't need to cover it or take any action?
No, we'll cover it one time at the end,
Okay.
when all of our bills are paid, instead of doing it regularly throughout the year.
And I just wanted to follow up, this is a good question. Several years ago, Tracy, you may actually remember this, but that same question came up, whether or not we had to cover the shortage during the fiscal year. And it was, at that time, was specific to legal, I think, many years ago. And someone, I can't recall who was first selectman at the time, but they insisted that we needed to at least move some money into that account to cover it while we're going through it. So I don't know, again, I don't recall whose legal opinion that was, or if we actually had one, but we actually transferred money mid-year to cover that deficit. Your experience suggests that we don't have to do that.
No, I mean, if we knew that our bills were complete at this point and reval was done and no more bills were expected in, we could certainly do it mid-year,
Right.
Which we will do. Next month we'll be coming forward with transfers for all of the contracts that have been signed. Those line items will be overdrawn because of that. We'll be coming, I'll be coming to you with that. That's an example of, we know what those numbers are, we're done for the year, and we'll get it done. But typically there's no issue in waiting till the end of the year, as long as you're aware of it and move forward. Again, you could do it. You could do it every month if you wanted to. But preferably something like this, we would wait till the end of the year.
It seems to make sense in this situation. But if it was a different line item, we'd have a situation where the town is writing a check that's putting us over budget, and I wouldn't imagine that's permissible.
Correct. And it is allowable in your budget. It is allowable to go over in the bottom line. Like I said, as long as you're aware of it and we move forward with it. So, and different line items, there are different reasons for different line items. You're correct, and we would look at those individually. That's why I brought this to your attention today.
Right.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions on expenses? No? Revenue?
Revenue?
Or
Yeah, yes. Revenue is doing very well. On the town side, we are 96.3% collected, which is a little higher than where we were last year, thanks to our tax collection line being up higher at this point than last year, and a couple other lines which I'll discuss. Overall, we are 94.8% collected with the monies we've received so far from the state. As of right now, things change every day, but as of right now, we've received all the money we would have expected to receive at this point. There are already some questions moving forward with some of the other funds, specifically Town Aid Road. I'm not sure if you looked at that this morning. But we've actually brought in what we expected at this point. The percentages will be skewed for this entire year because obviously our budget does not match the amount of state aid that we're receiving in. So looking at the percentages is not going to show you a true picture. This will be the year we look back on and wonder what the heck we did. But other than that, town clerk revenue is looks like it's tracking lower than past years, but I just wanted to make note that we increased her budget by 17% this year, and that, as you can see, it's bringing her budget line right in line with where we should be at. We're at 58% and her budget is 57% collected, so by increasing that budget, we've actually gotten to where we should be. So like I always say, it's sometimes difficult to look at last year versus this year without knowing all of the the links that put the numbers together. Planning and zoning had increased they anticipated and projected an increase in their revenue, so their budget line also went up. And it was specifically for some commercial and multifamily housing applications that just have not come to the table yet. So they're looking like they're tracking low, but at this point, we're not seeing that should be an issue as long as those come forward. I think last month I talked about engineering and public works. We're tracking very high this year. Last year we were very low at this point. I think I might have mentioned that last month. But unless you have any other questions, some of the things I discussed prior months, so I won't go over them again.
I just want to note, finance department seems to be grossly exceeding their objective. So that was one on the line item where we didn't hedge our bets against what we thought the
Correct.
number
We
would
did
be.
increase the budget this year,
Right.
but not so much that it was a high expectation. And you'll remember through the budget, we did increase it again for 19. So.
Yeah. Good. Anything further on revenues? That's good. Warrants? Special fund? Anything?
I had a couple questions about the warrants. On page 6 of the main warrant, publication of budget, there's $869 in there, and I wondered what that referred to. If that was,
put in newspaper, I bet.
well, we
Well,
haven't done that yet.
I don't think we've
So,
done that yet. Let's see, we're on
Okay.
page 6.
My concern was that was the cost of the notebooks.
It quite possibly could be. They are quite expensive. They went up. I know they went up
Okay.
last year. Let me just see where.
If-
W. Mason. It is.
Yeah.
It's all of the budget books. It's
Okay.
all of the tabs. The cost of the budget books last year had doubled, which is one of the reasons you're seeing the iPads in front of you. The hope
Good.
would be moving forward.
That was my comment.
Yeah.
Great.
This year we thought it was a little bit ambitious to do all of to start the budget on the iPads, but hopefully next year we can hope to eliminate a lot of that cost.
That's great.
And it's not only the cost of the binders and the tabs, it's the constant photocopies, and we go through thousands of pieces of paper to do that. So hopefully, pay for the iPads in 1 year.
Right, yeah. I
without doing that.
appreciate your keeping that in mind. That's great. And then I had one other question, and this was discussed at Board of Finance too, so I apologize if it was answered, but there was discussion of the summer road maintenance line being as high as it was. And there's a large purchase of salt that I think is going into summer, unless there's a reason for that. And it's on It's on page-
That I would have to check on.
it's on page 40.
Okay.
And that would account for, I think, part of that
They
difference.
might purchase it ahead.
Yeah, but it shouldn't go in summer.
Sure.
Shouldn't go in
Yes.
summer. I will absolutely look into that.
Okay.
This is turning Quantified into a salt farm.
The new fertilizer. I don't. I will absolutely look into that very soon.
Thank you. And that's all I had.
That's it. Anything else? No. On warrants, we're good. Nothing, anything on the weekly warrants? Suspect no as well. Medical?
Medical looked good.
Yeah.
Medical, we are still low on our claims. As I mentioned at the Board of Finance meeting, soon we will start to see a jump in those claims. If you look over to last year, and we received reports just this weekend, which are proving that to be true. The numbers are going up. However, even if they go up to the levels of last year, our budget will still be under. It's hard to know. This is the second year of the HSA for the Board of Education. Second year, the members of that plan, maybe have a better understanding on how it works, and so we'll see some shifts. It could be why we're seeing the shift a little earlier than we were last year. As people use up their deductibles, the town ends up covering a little bit more. So you will see when I report next month a slight jump from where we are. However, still the bottom line is looking very healthy. We expect to be at about $4 million at the end of the year. I do want to talk a little bit about catastrophic claims. If you'll note that for December, our claims actually went down from November, and we've been working on trying to figure out how that happened. I did just receive word this morning. There was a number of claims for one person that went through in July and August, and those claims were reprocessed after additional information was received, bringing our costs down. So that does not happen very often, especially not so much, which is why we spent a couple of weeks doing some thorough analysis before we provided an answer. And I did not have that answer for the Board of Finance, but that is what happened there. So with that going down, we're still only at 218,000. But again, as we go through the year, we sometimes see a big shift there as well.
Anything else? 1 minute. We're good? Okay. All right, 4.2, discuss and take possible action on resolution regarding equipment lease purchase agreement between the town and the Bank of America Public Capital Corp.
What we're trying to accomplish here, as recommended by our bond counsel, is to specifically the final whereas is really the main part. It's to, you have already, the Board of Selectmen has already given the first selectman and the finance director the authority to move forward with the documents and to sign all documents. The authority was that we would both sign all documents, and it was bond counsel's recommendation that we change that slightly to authorize the signing of disbursement requests to the first selectman and the finance director acting either individually or collectively. This is to ensure that we have timely payments if Matt or I are happen to be on vacation when something comes in. We have specific rules and timing that we need to follow for this. So we're asking you to approve this resolution that allows for that particular item to be addressed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the whereas before the last whereas. It does have an and/or in there. It requires first selectman and/or finance director. Maybe that's not the way it was worded.
They're both all together. Yeah, that one says and/or, and then the following one has the authority acting either individually or collectively. It's kind of saying the same thing.
Requires and/or.
I hate and/or.
I know.
Is that paragraph referring to as it reads today?
That was what I thought it was.
No, because we wouldn't have had to change it if it was and/or.
Right.
That was my thought.
Right,
Okay. But
right.
All right. Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? None. 4.3, consider and take possible action on 5-year capital improvement plan.
So what you have in front of you is just the final 5-year capital improvement plan, which includes the $1.008 million that you have approved to send forward with the budget. You'll see that the 2 columns are marked approved and the next 4 years marked as requested. The bonding is obviously 0 at the bottom. with just the capital items being approved for the 2019 fiscal year. So we're just looking for your blessing on the 5-year capital plan. I know there is some question on whether you're approving the expenditures of the next 4 years. That is not the intent of this document. The intent is to solidify the approved columns and to just put the plan in place for projects that we know about and intend on funding or have the possibility of funding in the future. So I know, so you had a little bit of a...
I did, and I agree with everything that you just said, as long as that's what's reflected in our resolution, or even on the document itself. For example, we could take the requested, that's over the remaining 4 years, we could word that differently, and we could say...
Requested but not yet approved.
Yeah, or anticipated, or something to that effect, I don't know.
It's fine. The wording on the column certainly would have no effect on the document.
Right.
I had another thought on this too, which is positive and favorable with the way this has played out. And that's that, we took some pains to try and not erode the general funding below $1 million. That was a long-term goal of this board and the Board of Finance, I know, that to kind of get that to a number that can be helpful in terms of long-term planning, and that's what we achieved. But we also didn't dramatically push out we didn't just solve that by just pushing out huge numbers in the subsequent years. It's 1.3 million over the next 2 years, but then it's back to $1 million in 2022 and 2023, and we'll address the next year since it's not approved. But it's not it's not unrealistically skewed by just dumping things in the subsequent years.
Right,
I mean,
that's
we're
right.
within sight of being able to sort of maintain $1 million, maybe some slow growth if it's possible,
Yeah.
but it's not like all of a sudden we got to deal with 1.9 million next year.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think we tend to focus on the details and lose the big picture.
The overall purpose of the plan, I
Yeah.
think, is to give us a roadmap for a few
Yeah,
years.
exactly. And it is, I believe, a fire truck. I mean, there are lots of things that go into it, but a
Yeah.
fire truck in each of the next 2 years kind of accounts for the reason why it goes up to 1.3 those years, so
Yeah.
That's
it
kind of
makes
why I
sense.
included that on this final document, so
Yeah.
you could exactly see that at the bottom.
Right. There's
Sure.
also-
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
helpful.
There's also $1 million in there for a new 8-bay parking garage, potential 8-bay
Oh,
parking
yes,
garage.
well, that's true, too.
That's in the
That's
that's in the bonding
That's in
vote,
bonding
yes.
with the fire truck, so.
Yeah. Oh, the fire trucks are.
Right, so you have to
That's
look
right,
at the
those are
difference
bonded,
between
yeah.
the bonding
Got it.
and the general fund.
Oh, I
So
see,
that's,
okay.
that's most of the
I
bonding.
see, thank you.
All right, so in the motion, do we want to change the title of this plan for the balances, the 4 years to anticipated? Is that?
I don't know, whether that-
It's up to you. I mean, I think it's a tiny bit clearer. I mean, I get it.
it's or requested by departments,
Requested
or
by
something like that, maybe?
Sure.
I liked when we said requested but not approved. I mean, that's, says it all.
Requested by departments but not yet approved?
Right.
There
Yeah.
we go. Great. Right, this way, anybody else picks this thing up, they can see at a glance where things stand. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. Great.
Yeah, that's clear.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the 5-year capital plan with the following change, that the requested out years, years 2020 through 2023, be titled requested by departments but not yet approved? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Any further questions? Call a question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Item 5, our dockmaster, Rod McLennan, discuss and take possible action on after-the-fact authorization for emergency repair costs for marina damage totaling $33,650. How are you, Rod?
Good.
Good. Want to give us a little background on what happened? And
We had quite a freeze. We had well over a foot of ice in the Marina Basin. And it lifted 4 pilings straight up, and then they fell sideways. And we had 2 dock sections that the piling hoops got hung up on the ice. So when the tide came up, the docks went up. When the tide went out, the docks stayed up until they broke loose and tore the sides out of 2 of our 8 by 20 foot dock sections.
big. Has the work already been done?
The work has been started.
Okay.
The pile driving I got done as soon as I could get a pile driver in there.
I saw that.
Because with the rest of the damage along the coast, I figured if I didn't get him now,
Right.
I wasn't going to.
Good.
And we're supposed to open April 1st.
Okay.
The money is all coming out of the Marina Commission.
Right.
There's a $10,000 deductible,
Okay.
which we're going to meet.
All right.
And then the rest of it will come out of the Marina.
Okay. Wonderful.
And
Pam?
I'll just add a point that we did get a contract with the BB to repair this and got insurance certificate. And also confirm with Mark Jackson from Coastline Consulting that there are no deep approvals required in this repair work.
Thank you for that update, Pam. It's important to note, particularly as it relates to deep. So how long do you think it'll take to get the work done?
The docks have been completed. They should be delivered next week.
Okay.
I would expect within 2 weeks, we'll be all ready to go again.
Good. So we'll be ready for your April 1st opening?
Yes.
Good.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Yeah. I'll second in that
There
case.
you go.
Is it 30?
$33,650.
It may actually come out a bit less than that.
Okay.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed. Motion's been modified. Not to exceed $33,650. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Thank you. Ed.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6, consider and take possible action on RFQ, RFP, number 1-1718, a consultant to administer Small Cities Development Block Grant Housing Rehabilitation Program. And 6.1 would be to discuss and take possible action to set a public hearing on March 6th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Community Center, discuss the fiscal year 2018 Community Center Block Grant Program, and to solicit citizen input. I want to note that that's the night of one of the Board of Finance workshops. I figured we'd all be out anyway, so we just got to go about a half hour early. And hopefully there won't be a huge crowd there looking to speak on this issue, which I doubt there will be. But this is not the first time that we've discussed this. This is the program for the more needy households in this community to receive interest-free loans on housing rehabilitation projects. So, any other comments or questions?
I didn't understand the bid summary. I guess I'm not understanding the details of what
Okay.
the consultant would be doing.
So the consultant is paid out of the grant funds. We tried to get multiple bids reaching out, and we were unsuccessful. We did get one other bid, but it was disqualified, so we don't even talk about those numbers. And also Matt actually called all the references, double checked on her. She's paid in total $81,000, 12% of the awarded grant. So if the grant's $400,000, and then plus an administrative fee. That's
So that's
the way
81,000
that works.
total.
Yeah,
for the grant.
yeah, 81,000 in total.
All right.
So, in addition to setting the public hearing date, the other thing that we're asking you to do is authorize Matt to execute the consultant agreement. We'll enter into a very simple consultant agreement, which we reviewed and revised. I'll need that motion as well.
So is that customary for, it works out to 20%
So-
approximately of the grant, doesn't leave much left for
It
the
certainly
purpose of
doesn't.
the grant.
And
Is that normal? I don't
can't,
have
s- I-
experience.
that is,
In my discussion from it is normal, and it is allowable with the federal program. Because these programs are typically not programs that are run with in-house expertise. The grant writing process, which I think is part of the original
Bulk
fee,
of it,
right?
yeah,
and then management of the program itself. So they are actually going to manage the application program portion from the residents and manage the grant process, as well as all the site visits on the homes, coordinating with the contractors, et cetera. So it's an uplift of 20% of the project. So.
Yeah, I have a slightly contrarian view on, I'll put this in the general category of nonprofit work and admin. I mean, I know admin sort of like can be like a little bit of a bogeyman in terms of, you should be spending on program. If things aren't administered properly, the money doesn't get to the right place, and if this person is effective, 20% is not a crazy number. You know, it's maybe getting into a range where it could be a little bit of a problem. 10 or 12 or 15 is better, so it's a little bit on the high side, but it's not an outrage. And somebody's got to do it, and if this person wasn't doing it, presumably somebody in the house would have to do it.
Or it wouldn't happen at all.
And so,
It's not- it doesn't happen.
I understand the purpose and the thought of getting as many dollars as possible to the service, but in order to affect that, I think some admin is acceptable
That makes
to me.
sense.
And I will say there's layers of agreements on this. I saw some model agreements and, you know, it's heavily documented. So there's a lot of administration, I would think, in that.
Well, and this is only one or two programs that this, at least Lowe and Associates, works with. There's another program which is designed for funding for senior housing programs, housing development programs. And we have identified needs with those programs. So the thought here is we may be able to go and once we have them on board and we're happy with them, if they could help us administer application process through HUD as opposed to waiting for the state steep money, which may or may not materialize anytime soon, if we can avail ourselves to federal money for something like a roof at one of the facilities, which is already an identified need. And then secondly, we have an issue with the lighting on Boston Terrace leading into Boston Terrace. It is not traditional street lighting. It was constructed as part of the original build. None of those lights currently work. And most of them are in such disrepair, and there's also a power feed issue in there. So if we can utilize some federal dollars, because quite honestly, we don't get much in terms of federal dollars. So this, you know, and we're also hiring our expertise to forge our way through these application processes and what's available.
I attended that small cities
Yes.
workshop, and I agree that I thought this is a steep add-on price or part of the price, but it is so complicated. The grants are so complicated, and there's so many facets and layers of different people supervising, and it's all through the, as it says here, the Department of Housing. And I mean, this is the way it works, good or bad. This is the way it works, and you have to comply with so many things that you need somebody who's an expert in it to do it.
And again,
Makes sense.
I think it's got eventually got dual purpose. And the three references I talked to, one of them I think was Brookfield. This is the 7th round of funding. They already have 7. They're using Lisa Lowe and Associates this year again for their 8th round of funding. They've been successful every year they've applied for it.
That's got to say something.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So,
Okay.
all right. Thank you. All right. So, what did we need added to the motion?
So you, in addition to setting the public hearing date, you're going to, if you
Authorize
so
me to enter
vote,
into.
authorize Matt to execute the consultant agreement as revised by council.
Got that?
I just moved that.
You just made that motion?
Just described by.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Sue
Sue
seconded.
seconded.
Everybody can second. All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Thank you. Item 7, request for use of town property. Act on request from St. George Men's Group to place a sign on the green advertising St. Patrick's Day dinner dance taking place March 17th, 2018. I'll make that motion.
Yeah, there you go.
Being the Irishman at the table, mostly Irish. Is there a second?
Second.
And the good news is there's not a Board of Finance meeting on St. Patrick's Day like it happened. It seemed like it happened every other year for a while. Just forestall the inevitable. Anyway, is there a call to question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Opposed, abstained, recused, Item 8, correspondence, building officials' monthly report. Any questions on that?
That looks good.
No? Okay. All right, 8.2, Public Works monthly report.
That was interesting, actually. We did get a summary on the storms,
Yep.
overtime hours.
Yep.
Appreciate that information. I think we had asked for that. I'm not sure if that happened routinely, but,
It usually does during the winter, I think.
yeah. Well, I'm glad. That's helpful,
Yeah.
because this year it felt like it was just never stopping.
12 events, yeah. And 12 events for 28.5 inches of snow, not a lot of snow, but 1.5, 2 inches per.
Right.
That's right. Of course, this doesn't count what happened Saturday night either, which was all overtime as well. So let's, okay. Item 9, committee reports. We said we were gonna, once we got past the budget, we were gonna deal with that. All right. So we'll tee this up for March. All right. So take a look at your list and get your favorites as soon as possible.
They're going
Because I
fast.
know you're gonna fight over them. That's right. Can I get one that only meets on a quarterly basis? Sure. Oh, no. All right, old business. I did have I'd like to bring back up the anti-fracking, I think we're calling it, but the ordinance itself is an ordinance to amend the Code of Town of Guilford, Chapter 237, hydraulic fracturing waste restrictions. As recently as this morning, Pam and I were going back and forth on this with Attorney Barrett. Attorney Barrett had some concerns that it needed to be tightened up because of the omission of oil drilling.
Yeah, so late January, I sent Pete a draft of the ordinance. I reviewed the Branford ordinance, got several form ordinances from CCM, but they pretty much just tracked the Branford ordinance. But I think both Pete and I have legal issues with the Branford ordinance, so I took a stab at drafting it a lot narrower. And that's what we're going back and forth on now. The other aspect of this is on the state level, they're not defining hydraulic fracturing dealing with oil extraction. They limit it to gas extraction. I'm actually going through the legislative history a little bit on that, as what their thinking was, whether that was a lobbying concept. And there are provisions within the Branford ordinance that are just beyond, I think, the ability for the town to enforce. Language like storage, disposal, sale, acquisition, handling, treatment of waste from natural gas or oil extraction is prohibited within the town. You have to think about town businesses, chip sealing,
What I was going to say is, would there be language reflecting that, and somebody, who needs to certify it in what fashion that it's not happening?
Right, so the way the Branford ordinance was set up was to say, just get the language here. Any designee authorized by the Board of Selectmen may pursue penalties against any person who commits a violation. The involvement of any Branford officials will not require testing of waste products to determine chemical contents, as this work will be done via contact from Connecticut Deep or other third-party laboratories. Some of that language is just not workable.
Yeah, it sounds like it puts too much pressure on the town.
So I think we can definitely have an anti-fracking ordinance. It's just, I think, we'll talk about making it really narrow to begin with. And as the other aspect of this is DEEP is required to come out with multiple regulations on fracking by July 2018. So a lot of people are waiting to see what that, what transpires there, and then kind of coordinate their ordinance that way. And once we have more information, if we want to move forward, you can choose to move forward. One suggestion is do it really narrow, and then let's see what happens with deep, and then we could always amend it once we get a little more clarity. And that would be generally speaking.
Given the fact that Deep has 400 empty seats in their office, and you and I were up there and we saw some of them, I'm not at all confident that Deep is going to get that regulation out in time. So putting a stake in the ground, I think, is important. It is, at least it is to me. My concern is by removing, have we removed the enforcement teeth by taking out the provisions that you had indicated that were in there from Branford?
We have a different type of enforcement, and we
Right.
did not have a situation where we would actually have to, pay for third-party inspectors
Gotcha.
or expect Deep to do it for us.
Right.
I don't think they're set up to do that for, especially if it's such a broad prohibition.
Right.
But no, certainly, there's a whole citation process
Yes.
that we're allowed to do under the Home Rule Act, the authority of what subject matters you can create ordinances on has built into that a whole citation process, how you enforce those ordinances that you, and so we have that, the draft includes tracking that, as
right.
well as there's a whole state structure of, potential water pollution and what happens and who enforces potential water pollution issues, which could come into play here. So you could have two levels. You could have a local level citation process as well as
And then the state level. Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure that we weren't taking teeth out of the ordinance.
Yeah, no, the teeth is there. That whole inspection thing to prove it
That's, okay.
needs to be flushed out.
Good. Anything further? Any other questions?
Now, just what's the timeline on that? We got to set a meeting. What's the timeline?
Yeah, I would like to set a meeting date. Can we set a meeting date in advance of the ordinance itself being approved by us, or is that
So I just say subject to
subject to? Okay.
finalizing the ordinance.
I think it'd be helpful for
with-
people, helpful for us.
Right.
With the
Right.
town attorney.
And what, this is an ordinance, so this requires town meeting? Or no, just a public hearing, right? I'm thinking this is probably an evening public hearing. Agreed. Agreed. That week of the 5th is jam-packed, right? Should we look to the following week?
What if you went to the Selectmen meeting on the
On the
19th and
19th,
combined it with that and made it a night meeting? Does that work?
Are we good with
One
that?
thing is, there's a Board of Finance meeting that night too, so.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking
Yeah,
at February.
no, you're right.
I'm
You're
sorry.
absolutely right.
It's the same,
Does it have to be a night?
I think it does. I think it does. Yeah. And the 5th doesn't work. That's our next scheduled meeting, right? The 5th? I don't want to,
We could make that one a night one.
you want to make that a night one?
Sandy?
Sandy, the 5th at night?
yeah,
So,
I'll just have to change something.
Well, I have to,
When do
we
you
have to
need the
publish
final?
it in the paper 5 days before the meeting.
Right.
And
So I think that's tight
that
in
is
terms
tight,
of
yeah.
Pete and I agreeing on language.
All right, let's move it to the following week. I just,
Following week of the following meeting.
following week, get the hearing done. If we can get in.
All right, can it be?
So we can't do it
Can it
when-
be Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah,
or Friday?
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
shot Monday.
Monday also was the second Board of Finance workshop.
Yeah, can't,
Wait a minute. Yeah,
we
that's
can't
true.
just leave the morning meeting then for the 19th and do it then? Do you
I'd
think
rather-
people?
I'd
Okay.
rather have it at
All
night.
right. I can't come during the week of the 12th unless it was Friday night. Nobody wants it to be Friday night.
Okay.
That's okay, though. I mean, you can have it without me.
You could certainly give us a statement that indicates your
Yeah.
support, right?
Yes.
Or your
Or my lack of.
or your lack thereof.
Then I'd have to move.
Then you'd have to give up your seat on this board. Which we won't allow that to happen. All right, so
What are we
Tuesday,
saying?
Wednesday or Thursday of that week?
You're looking at the 14th or
Yeah.
15th of
Yeah.
March?
No, Thursday's not, it has to be Tuesday or Wednesday for me.
Oh, I thought you said, okay. Wednesday? And Tuesday is the,
Wednesday the 14th is good.
March. So, excuse me, it is 13 or 14 of March.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So we're doing Tuesday the 13th?
call it. Either one, they're equal for me.
Same here.
Let's do Tuesday.
good, Tuesday the 13th?
Okay, what times?
7:30,
And what time? what
Communities.
time do you need the final?
Community Center?
This will be a one agenda meeting.
One agenda meeting, unless we have something else that we need to put in there.
Yeah, but for
Between
now,
now
it'll
and
mark
then.
it as fracking.
Do we have anything else that we potentially need?
And we're going to meet presumably at the community center?
Yes.
I find the
If
room.
it's available.
I gotta,
Or Firehouse. Firehouse is always an option.
Gotcha.
All right.
Does that give you enough time, Pam?
I think so, I gotta figure out the timing, I think so.
7:30
She's gotta tell me
or
when we
7,
have to have the
7:30?
final version.
7:30.
Okay,
Works? Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right. Anything else under old business? New business?
I have an item, I mean, really, it relates to some of the local and national events, firearm-related events, and I recognize that we have limited ability to, affect necessarily the national debate, but that doesn't mean there's nothing that can be done. I've looked around and frankly come to realize or learned that the one action that people can take, if they have unused guns, this is not imposing anything, this would be voluntary, obviously, is the police department, the Guilford Police Department, and I suspect many other police departments and other organizations will voluntarily take back unwanted firearms.
And they have guidelines that they publish about acceptance of such.
Yeah, so I mean, people I think sometimes get locked up on the topic, and it can be a very difficult and emotional topic in a lot of ways, but there's a small way, I think, that somebody could feel like they're doing something good, and I just wanted to raise it and say they would be happy to discuss it with anybody, and there's a procedure in place to take back any unwanted firearms. It's just that simple. So, go to the order.
Go to the order. Thank you. One other piece of new business.
There is also, I think it's in its very infant stages, a movement afoot about coordinating a march in town with National March.
Yes.
And I would be in support of that if.
Actually, you stole my
Oh,
thunder. Stole my thunder. I had two items I wanted to
Well
cover.
done, Charlie.
But actually, we just got the request this morning from a Frank Blackwell and Karen has been working with him through the application process. He's got they're talking about a march and a rally on the green. If it's a march, that'll have to be fully coordinated with the police department. As if there's a rally, we'll also have police presence as well. But
I just think it's an opportunity to demonstrate.
it absolutely is. And Mr. Blackwell reached out to me personally and asked if I would address the crowd. So I would welcome anybody to come, and if anybody wanted to take the opportunity to say something, I'd certainly share that podium.
Could you
You
remind
do
us
the
of the
talking,
date?
well,
Is
do
it-
the-
March 24th is,
March
yeah,
24th.
it's tied in with the national
Yeah.
organization. So, all right, so that was one. The second was on Sunday. I had the opportunity to welcome the Greater New Haven Chinese Community Organization, who was hosting. Yeah, exactly. Hosting Chinese New Year, and they had it at Guilford High School. The festivities included meals, a big meal in the dining area, as well as performances. Jing Zhang had invited me to come along, and I made I was asked to say a couple welcoming remarks. And I also got the opportunity to introduce Dr. Henry Lee. And it was really
They said it was like 500 or 600 people.
absolutely surprised.
Are we glad that we have this building that
Can accommodate that. That's one of the points I wanted to make, in addition to welcoming that organization.
better keep my mouth shut or I'm gonna get
That's
slapped
right,
here?
that's right. And, though they're not all from Guilford, there was a sizable representation from Guilford of people that I knew and recognized in the community. So I just thought it was, these little things happen around our town that I think more people need to be aware of, so. Anybody else, new business? Item 12, public forum. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals?
No opposition there.
We just